International Conference on Accounting and Finance.
I speak to you here as the immediate past president of the Insurance Association, and to give you a flavor for the direction in which the insurance industry is going in, and also maybe its impact in the financial services landscape in Sri Lanka. Insurance was a legacy left by our colonial masters, the British, more than 100 years ago. So we have a history of over 100 years of an insurance industry with giants like Lloyd's being in this market. And in 1961, the government of that time nationalized insurance, which was the trend. And I think those of you from India would be more familiar, where India and Sri Lanka went through this process of socialist political regime. And the nationalization was the way forward at that time. Now, we had a monopolistic nationalized industry for something like 20-odd years, or over 20 years. When in 1986, social democratic government came in, and in the concept of an open economy, the banking and the insurance sector was opened out to the public. So in 1988, we had the first few licenses that were conglomerates, large conglomerates got together and you formed insurance companies. So it started with, we had an environment of 9 insurance companies doing both life and general or composite insurance companies. And right now, we stand at 21 insurance companies. So in those days, you had the regulator, or the regulator was the control of insurance that were governed by the Ministry of Finance. And we had the control of insurance that was superseded by the Regulation of Insurance Act of the year 2000. Now there you had, or we have right now, the status of insurance board, which again comes within the purview of the Ministry of Finance. And we have a regulator, and we have the trade arm. We have the Insurance Association of Sri Lanka, where the industry is represented by its CEOs and directors. And we have the National Insurance Trust Fund. Now, one thing that I forgot to mention was under the nationalized scheme, within a closed economy, it was realized that we needed to retain some portion of the reinsurance outgo. So while the major reinsurers of sovereign or A or B or C, A or B rating participated in this market, we had a national pool. And as a result of the national pool, there was an entity called the National Insurance Corporation that did both reinsurance as well as general insurance. So the successor to that is right now the National Insurance Trust Fund, where all of us in the pool, they are reinsurer as well as doing a bit of the government or state sector general insurance. We all cede up to 30% of our reinsurance arrangements to this National Insurance Trust Fund. So when there's a claim along with the other reinsurance arrangements, whether it be facultative or treaty, we have 30% being contributed by the National Insurance Trust Fund. So today we have 21 companies. We have 3 specialized general insurance companies and 2 specialized life insurance companies. So in keeping in line with global trends, it was decided by the regulator 3 years ago that companies should segregate. So those out of the majority who are composite insurance companies, that is companies who do both life and general insurance under one roof, would have to segregate into either a holding company and a subsidiary or as 2 separate business entities. So right now, the segregation comes into effect from the 15th of February 2015. So we have just a couple of months more to go into a segregated and a new insurance environment. And the idea is to bring about focus, bring about customer service, and particularly on the compliance and finance side, where the losses of one entity cannot be carried out from the losses of another class. So you have, at present we still practice profit and loss statements and balance sheets, both in life and in non-life separately. But however, with two companies being separated, or two entities being separated, it is expected that financial discipline, compliance would be more focused with the topmost objective of customer service. So as we move on, in 2016, with the introduction of Basel II and the Solvency II regime, we are introducing the risk-based capital requirement from 2016. Now, all this time we have had a rule-based solvency regime where insurance companies need to maintain a minimum of 500 million per class. So if you are a life insurance company, you need to have 500 million as your stated capital, and if it's general, again 500 million as your stated capital. So with the risk-based capital adequacy ratios, as the industry stands now, because the industry was asked to do a dry run to see whether we could actually adopt or adapt to the new change, and at the same time to have a parallel run along with the existing rule-based regime, and to get an idea of what a capital adequacy ratios would be. Now the benchmark set by the insurance regulator is to be 120%. So the challenge for insurance companies would be how they would bridge their operations such as marketing, sales, portfolio management, the risk management, what sort of activities they have within the risk-based capital rules, principles, to meet the 120% minimum. So most of us are thriving to reach a threshold of 150 so that you leave a margin of comfort so that you could manage your businesses. Moving forward, or at least what is already implemented now and I guess is not yet implemented in India, is the IFRS. Now, Sri Lanka has its accounting standards where each line is disclosed and we follow the IFRS rules. So, to you gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen from overseas, the Sri Lankan financial services market is very much in line with international trends and with global trends, and there is a push to move towards a globally recognizable, globally understandable regime, so that we are in line with our partners and investors whom we would be dealing with. Insurance is yet a very much territorial business. Now, we cannot insure an overseas entity because we are still our regulations do not permit that. But however, since we have Sri Lankan interests in the Maldives, and I suppose in any other similar territory, reinsurance treaties would allow us to underwrite those risks. So to that extent, insurance is a bit restricted in terms of globalization. But however, one of the emerging markets in Sri Lanka is the medical insurance, because in Sri Lanka we do not have something like a social security safety net, because education and health are technically free of charge. In the health scheme, you could walk into any government hospital and, at least in theory, from a headache to a bypass or to a big procedure, it would be free of charge, funded by the government, and so is education. Nonetheless, that structure cannot be sustained for too long. So today, the government health sector is actually giving a patient an idea of what it costs to maintain or to treat the person, so that they have some form of appreciation. But the way we see things moving, it is very likely that the government may want to have some sort of a social security or insurance to support the social security requirements of the community at large. So towards that, the industry is quietly but surely but cautiously treading towards the micro insurance and the microfinance side of the business, where right now the insurance industry does not have too much experience. But there are attempts being made with the help of the IFC to move into weather index-based insurance, where we can help the cultivator and work through a distribution model, where the insurance industry would use one of the distributors or the people who give the inputs such as fertilizer and seeds to actually promote micro insurance to this market segment. So there are developments, and as I said, with the emergence of health insurance, because Sri Lanka has the situation where next to Japan in the region, we have the fastest aging population, and yesterday's figures say that our population growth is just 0.9%. So we have a challenge, a social challenge, to meet the needs of an aging population, where life insurance, investment-based life insurance would have, and pension planning would be challenges for the insurance industry. Now, one of the drawbacks the insurance industry had from getting into guaranteed pensions is globally guaranteed pensions have not worked too well, because you cannot sustain the investment or the long-term hedging. So to that extent, the central bank has recognized that we need long-term government bonds, and the central bank is working on 30-year bonds, 40-year bonds, so that the insurance industry and other similar financial institutions could look at long-term products to cater to the needs of our aging population. In the same way, health insurance is getting very, very sophisticated and very specialized. Now, there are markets in the region that would give you an insurance product if you have a cardiac condition, a heart condition, or if you are prone to cancer. It's not that it's a pre-existing situation, but you could actually peg products or develop products around very specific diseases. Now, most of us, I think, in today's pressure cooker world, we are all subject to some form of hypertension, and that's the basic. So in today's underwriting regime, you might not underwrite, or you might not give a life insurance policy, or it might be a bit expensive to give a health insurance policy to somebody who has a precondition of hypertension. But that is changing, because even the underwriting and technical world of insurance needs to recognize the market realities and also the utility in order for insurance to be relevant and to cater to the market and for avenues for market expansion. How does insurance fit in to banking and finance in Sri Lanka? Now, I'm sure there would have been sessions here at this seminar, or a glance at the central bank figures or statistics would show that when you take the priority, you find banking at number 1, leasing and finance number 2, and right at the bottom of the pack is insurance. Now, unlike more advanced or developed economies, Sri Lanka is not a very litigious society. So the need for professional indemnity, the need for insurance against malpractices has not been that pronounced, and there has not been a need for it before. But as the country progresses, as the level of sophistication and the variety of services available, and with the emergence of new markets, there's going to be space or new market spaces for insurance being created. Right now, out of the GDP, when you take a percentage of insurance premiums, it stands at below 1.5%, which is very low for a country like ours. So the insurance industry is trying to reach at least 3 decimal points by the end of the year, so that we could reach a level of at least 1.7, 1.8. And I don't think in the near future we would have 2%, but the industry getting there. Because one of the drawbacks is really on awareness and on credibility, on trust. Now, there is a huge effort going on, unlike in banking or finance, where you see a tangible result. But in insurance, unless you have that moment of truth or claim, or you find a living benefit in terms of life or some sort of return, the tangibility of insurance is not fully understood in this market. So there is a lot of effort going on to the awareness as against the individual companies having their commercial advertisements. So there is this mismatch where you have 21 companies advertising and yet people understanding the benefits. And again, insurance is always sold and not bought. So the professionalizing of distribution of agents and those, the feet on the street has improved, and there is continuous improvement going on that. Because we need, and one of the silver lining in the clouds is that there are young graduates who are now interested in insurance, because if insurance is practiced in the correct way, your level of income is inelastic. I mean, you demand what you want. It depends on how hard you work and to which insurance company you belong to. I noticed there are some of you, I guess, from Malaysia, and even Takaful Insurance has been in the country for more than 10 years and is making inroads. So we have a sizable population that would follow the Takaful scheme of insuring and protection. So if you compare the insurance market to any other territory in the region, Sri Lanka has it. So it is similar. You won't find anything special. Just that the numbers and the scale is different. And the challenge is to bring insurance ahead of the finance and leasing segment in terms of demand. I am sure that you heard that by the dictates or by the requirements of the central bank that finance companies need to merge, because they find that there's so many finance companies and the span of control is a bit cumbersome. So there is a deadline, I think, by the next quarter, where the larger finance companies need to merge with the smaller finance companies so that you bring a better scale and a better level of service and also administration. Now, there is a bit of a parody here, or paradox here, whereas the financial services segment or the leasing and finance is merging, the insurance is expanding. So there is no talk of merging right now, but I am sure with the segregated situation and with the introduction of risk-based capital, some of these insurance companies may not be able to meet the thresholds or the requirements of capital adequacy. So therefore, we could expect to have mergers and acquisitions or consolidation within the insurance industry. So in a nutshell, moving forward, we have a very vibrant financial services sector. We have, right now we enjoy a per capita income of close or over US $3,000. Our aim is by 2016 to be a 4,000 US dollar per capita economy, and efforts are being taken to avoid the middle income trap. So all these changes, all the introduction of regulation, the unification of or the globalization of compliance and requirements are made to avoid this middle income gap in the process, and also to invite more foreign direct investment. And particularly in insurance, we have right now 4 multinationals in this market. We would like to expand that. May I add that insurance in Sri Lanka was denationalized in 1986, but India went through this only in the year 2000. And very interestingly, I was on a seminar at IIM, Indian Institute of Management in Ahmedabad, and they were asking us, what is your experience on a privatized situation? Whereas today we have the General Insurance Corporation of India underwriting or reinsuring most of our general insurance treaties. So it is the sheer scale. So the Sri Lankan financial services market, I guess the message I would like to leave is that we are proactive, we are in line with the new changes, we are ready to adapt and ready to implement new changes. But we have the issue of scale where we need to improve, and we are quite confident that with the improvement of individual economy and income levels and income capacities, that we would have that scale to a lesser extent and probably have more quality. Taking the emerging markets, we find a lot of young people today are not going into employment. Instead, we have entrepreneurial emergence, where a lot of young people would rather have their own startup. They would either go into IT or into alternate energy, and there's a lot of enthusiasm there. So again, we cannot view insurance distribution or marketing in its traditional sense. So the financial services, banking and insurance would have to recognize these new trends, new market trends, and move into the emerging trends. And at the same time, there's a lot of consciousness on compliance, on the environment, and on the triple bottom line, where people are now beginning to recognize these requirements. And to that extent, the financial services industry in Sri Lanka are well poised to meet that. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, I'd be very happy to answer, or any comments. That is basically my message for your keynote address. And I wish your sessions the very, very best of luck, and that you'll leave Sri Lanka with a more enlightened view on where we are heading as an economy and as a financial services hub. Thank you.